I put the theme on this morning. How's that? Understanding what I gain from faith. It's a weird theme to say, understanding what I gain from faith, because now you would say, well, Willem, you're not in it to gain something. But you work with a lot of people, and people always ask, what's in it for me? So the other question would be like, what's in it for me? What do I gain from being part of a faith community? Wat wen ek? What do I gain to belong to a church? What do I gain from this? It's a question we all ask in some way or another. When it comes to church, we want to say, no, it's not about what I gain, but it's always some sort of, what do I gain? So I just want to disintegrate a bit of this thinking pattern of saying, what do you think you can gain from being church and having church? There's a lot of things I can say, but I just want to narrow it down to some simplistic understanding of what I can gain. So let's use the word understanding. Most of us that are sitting here grew up in some form or another in a church or in a religious context. En ons het groot geword met Jesus, and we know Jesus, and we know the church, and we've sing the hymns, and we know the choirs, and we know the things, and we know the cross. That's one thing we know. We know the cross. We know the cross. We know that the cross exists. We know that Jesus died and He rose again. But what does it mean? Now, I want to say, to understand, to truly understand, to say, let me reshape my faith and truly understand what I gain from this. What is it all about? It would be like building a house. Building a house would require me to what? To start at the foundation, start at the bottom. That's why I chose this text in Matthew 7. So, to understand what I gain from faith, I must first understand, why do I have faith? Why do I have faith? Because it builds a solid foundation. It's like a house. A house is built, and if it's on a solid foundation, it doesn't crumble. Yes, there are cracks sometimes. Yes, sometimes there's windows missing or something. But without a house, where would you be? Where would you be? Now, this is metaphorically speaking. So the wise and the foolish builder. So you can be a wise or a foolish builder to say, I think a person with faith is a wise builder, but a person without faith is a foolish builder. I think that's my personal interpretation of the text. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down and the streams rose and the winds blew and beat against that house. Yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on a rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. So I think a wise person has faith. I'm not saying people who don't believe are foolish. I just think you are more wise to have faith. Because it says, understanding, it says, the rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. And it fell with a great crash. When Jesus had finished these things, the crowds were amazed at his teachings, because he taught as one who had authority and not as their teachers of the law. So, Jesus was what? What did he do? He was a carpenter. So he maybe used to build stuff or work with his hands. He knew about building, and his audience knew about building. So, for me in my life, spiritually, what do I need to sort out? I need to sort out that I have a solid foundation. That's why we try to teach our children from a young age. Glo in die Here, vertrou in die Here. Life's not going to get easier. It's not going to get better. But having a solid foundation will help you with a lot of things. For instance, let's use a marriage. Having a solid foundation in your marriage, a point of return, would let you last longer. If you have something, as jy sekere beginsels het en sê we run this family, this marriage, we run according to a few solid basic principles or foundations. We can always come back to that. Now, a good example is if you get lost in the bush. Have you ever gotten lost in the bush? Was julle al? Yeah. What is the best way if you're lost in the bush? How do you recover? You go back to the point where you recognize something. And from that point, you can redirect yourself. That's a foundation. A foundation is a place where you can go back to and say, this foundation will help me to readjust. Faith is that foundation. Faith is that deep foundation that says, let me go back. Let me start over. Let me rethink. Let me readjust. And then from there, I can go and tackle life and life challenges. What I wanted to say is, it's interesting that the text says the winds came. So it's not like you're going to build your house and you're going to have a breeze. You're going to build your house and the winds will come. And it will shake you to your core. But if you have deep roots, if you have a solid foundation, you'll stand. Jesus was a carpenter. He's speaking about listening and doing, and he's speaking about a solid foundation. So understanding what I gain from faith, the first thing is, if I have a solid foundation, my house will stand. Yes, a lot of things can and could happen, but my house will stand. It will not wash away like any other. This cross, I want to speak about this cross. What do I gain from the cross? So my foundation is based upon Christianity and religion. It's based upon the cross. What does the cross mean to you and to me? Wat beteken dit? Wat beteken die kruis? Like, what does it mean? So this foundation, I try to teach my children, you have to believe, you have to trust Jesus. They come with all these smart questions, which you really struggle to answer. Like Mianai asks, who is Jesus' dad? Is it Joseph or God? Can it be both? Does he have two dads? Stuff like that. But it's important to know, because it's interesting when you look in their lives. They would come to me and say, Papa, maar dis nie mooi nie. And if you would break it down, why is it not, hoekom is dit nie mooi nie? Because it does the world harm. And keeping that faith base creates an environment where they can build and say, I want to do good in this world, and I want to achieve good, and good will happen to me as well. So what do I gain? I build this foundation. I gain the cross. What does it mean to gain the cross? The cross was, by the time of the Roman Empire, it was a symbol of death. It was not a symbol of hope. It was for the first 1,000 years, it was a symbol of death. That's why the first Christians used that fissy. You remember the fissy? They put the fissy at the back of their bakkie. The fissy. Why? Because the first church could not reconcile with the idea of a cross as a symbol of hope. It was a symbol of death. They killed thousands and thousands. There's a story about Kaiser Tiberius, who killed so many people that they had to get in wood from Europe. They had to cut down extra trees to get it in to kill more people. It was a symbol of death. So in the time of Jesus, the cross was primarily intended as a method of execution used by the Roman Empire. It was designed for the punishment of criminals, particularly those accused of serious offenses such as rebellion, treason, or serious crimes against the state. Crucifixion was a public spectacle meant to deter others from committing similar crimes. They would raise you up high, hang you naked. It's a shameful thing to say, you challenge me again, this is what happens. We took the cross and we interpreted a certain message. But the first message looked different. It says, Romans killed with a cross to send a message. Why did they kill Jesus? They killed Jesus because he stood up against the Roman Empire, but more, he stood up against the Jews of his time. He stood up against them. For the Jews, the idea of God was contradicting. So if you read this text, it's interesting, né? Ons glo in die kruis, maar wat glo ons van die kruis? What do we believe about the cross? If you go back to the text, it says that they couldn't find something wrong with Jesus, the Roman authorities. Like I read John this week again. John says, but I can't find something. Pilate says, I can't find something wrong with this guy. Why must we kill him? And then it's his own people, the church, who says, kill him. He says, I can't find in the Roman law, I can't find something wrong with him. But if he's a rebellion in your religious circle, the Jews, what do you say? and they say, kill him, kill him. And because he's causing an uproar in the Jewish community, they kill him as Christians. So for us today, we say the cross became a symbol. In Jesus' case, the cross became a symbol of his sacrifice and redemption for humanity. According to the Christian belief, Jesus was crucified as part of a divine plan for salvation, taking upon himself the sins of this world. This transformed the cross from a mere instrument of torture and death into a central symbol of the Christian faith, representing hope, love, and a promise of eternal life. Ons het vir jare in die kerk, for years in the church, we learned that the cross was Jesus' way of dealing with sin and the problem of humankind. And the cross is now the only way that you can live. So there's a life after the cross, and this life after the cross is one where if you don't follow Jesus, you're going to end up in hell. And if you don't live according to him, you will end up in hell. And we've preached this a lot. We've preached this so many times in churches throughout the world. Soos die kruis is die enigste weg in die waarheid. En as jy nie die kruis het nie, dan sal jy vir ewig brand. Jy gaan vir ewig, you're going to die eternally. This is one view that we've always understood as part of being the cross. What I think is, if we emphasize too much that the cross is the only way and there's no other way, and it becomes a place where we say, we don't necessarily want to live for the now. We want to live for the one day. En ons het dit geleer met die ou EE3. Het ons geleer that it's important, like, onthou jy van ons vroeë werksonderhoude? One of my earliest church interviews, they asked Jessica to come with. We were engaged, was ons verloof, gedate. Sy kan nie eens onthou nie. Sy kan nie eens onthou toe ek al gevra het nie. Toe, the reverend sat us down. Now I'm here for a job interview for church. He says, where are you going to go when you die? I said, I'm not sure. I think my body will disintegrate. And he says, no, where's your soul going to go? I said, well, go to heaven. How do you know that? I said, well, I believe it. He says, are you sure? And I thought, this is a job interview. But I understand what he's saying, and I understand. So let me approach it this way. It's good to believe like that. But the problem with that as an emphasis is we're missing the now. Because we all want to go to heaven one day. Ons wil net hemel toe gaan. En laat my terugdink aan, there was this school where they sang this song for the kids. I'm going to heaven, and it's this nice song. And the one guy is a bit slow, so he can't get in all the words. But he knows what they're singing about, so he's just saying, Ek gaan saam, I want to go with. He's not catching the whole. But sometimes Christianity and the basis of Christianity is one day everything will be okay. I'm just looking forward to that one day. The cross is just that one day I'll be in heaven and everything will be fine. And it's good to believe that way, but too much emphasis of that leaves us with nothing for now. And the cross leaves us with everything for now. So we want to believe that, but we want to believe more than that. We want to say that God's will to make us one with God had to send this perfect, sinless human being. We emphasize too much on God's wrath. So did you watch the Passion of the Christ? So the Passion of Christ is the last 18 hours of Jesus. And it's just this emphasis on how much he had to suffer for you to be set free. But again, emphasizing that death and after death and heaven. But what is the cross? Maybe the cross is more than just fear, and because the whole idea of death changed after the cross. Everything changed after the cross. Die visie is nie meer daar nie. Wie plak nog 'n visie? Who believes like the fish? So it was actually the fish that was die broodjies en die visies wat vermeerder is. Dis hoekom hulle die visie opgesit het. The cross changed everything. The cross became a symbol of hope. It became more than a symbol of hope. Matthew 11 verse 28 says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will feel rest of your souls, For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. He's referring to the religious laws of the Pharisees. They say you have to do a lot of things to get into heaven, get into heaven, get into heaven. And sometimes you're so focused and so worried on getting into heaven that you're missing the now. And it happens in life. But he says, take upon me a yoke. Now, so I got you guys a picture of a yoke. It's a thing they put on the oxes to pull. So, having a solid Christian foundation is not having a burden. It's not thinking about the cross and heaven and hell and all this weight coming down on me. It's about thinking of everything in terms of hope, of resurrection, of reinterpreting what it means to follow Jesus. Reinterpreting it. In the passage of Matthew, the yoke refers to or symbolizes the teaching and guidance offers to his followers. A yoke is traditionally a wooden frame used to join two animals together for work, often in plowing and carrying loads. So you would imagine that yoke, it would be probably a wooden bar and then the steel on top. So it's not just the yoke that's heavy, it's the load. So when you have two oxes, you put the yoke on, but the yoke pulls the load. And he says religion shouldn't be this heavy yoke with this heavy set of rules and regulations to follow. It should make you light. It should set you free. It should make you think different. Then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will find it. So the cross is more than death and resurrection. It's not this heavy thing. It's also this light thing that sets you free, makes you free, and says, I'm free about my worries and the stuff going on now. Cross shouldn't add more worries about the future and what lies ahead. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their souls? For the Son of Man is going to come in his Father's glory with his angels, and then he will reward each person according to what they have done. We have to reinterpret our faith. Because I think sometimes we make our faith and the cross as a burden. And we try to tell people that following Jesus, you have to follow Jesus. Because otherwise there's no other option. It's good to tell people these things. But it's the Spirit that makes it awake in them. It's not you. It's the Spirit. So make it practical. How do we work with people who today believe as atheists or go around as atheists? The one way is to approach people and say, jy beter glo mannetjie, anders wag af jou spervuur. But the way I read the Bible is, Jesus set me free. And if I don't follow Jesus, what will happen to me? I will become a slave. A slave to what? A slave to myself. And that's what I said in Revelations a few weeks ago, or from Paul, that says, Jesus came to save you. What is the alternative to religion, to Christianity? Is becoming a slave to yourself. You become a slave to your own desires, to your own wants and needs. You know what ends up when you follow everything you want in life? You end up destroying everything you have. Het jy dit al agtergekom? Mense, people who say that Jesus is not the central figure in my life, they end up destroying themselves. They end up destroying so many things. But the moment you follow Jesus, you're set free to say, okay, Jesus, you take control. I will now follow you into the dark, to tomorrow. But I'm free. I'm free to worry about tomorrow. Nou, ek sê dit maklik. Maar ek weet ons is almal daar, sukkel. We struggle with that. So that's the two alternatives. So interpreting and reinterpreting Christianity, what is it about? It's about the cross. The foundation of the cross. How do you see the foundation of the cross? Are you at the point where you only say it's only about heaven and hell, it's only about one day? That's good. But the cross is more than that. My yoke is light. my las is lig, my juk is sag, my yoke is light. So, don't you think that the world needs to hear this message? That faith is not a burden. Christianity is not a burden. It's not something that should trouble you. It's something that should take away your troubles. It's not something that you would carry and it would break and hammer you down. It's something that will set you free. Now, I put in Hebrews 11. What is life without faith? Wat is lewe sonder geloof? What do we have left if we don't have faith? We don't have hope. We're scared of death. We're scared of everything. But if you make faith the central thing in your life, has it opened doors before you? Het geloof al vir jou deure oopgemaak? Ja of nee? Het geloof al vir jou deure? Has faith opened doors for you in your life? Ja. Definitely. Faith has opened doors in my life. And it's not because of me, it's because of Jesus. Faith shouldn't be a burden. Shouldn't think of Jesus as the one with a whip saying, this and this is going to wait for you. Faith should be the thing that sets you free, gives you hope for tomorrow. When there was no outcome, Jesus was the way. When there was no way forward, Jesus was the way. In Hebrew 11, I don't want to read the whole passage, but go and read the passage. It says, and it lists all these figures. It says, Abraham was an old man. He couldn't have children. God gave him children. Israel couldn't go through the desert. God made a way through the desert. They were chased by Egyptians. Jesus made a way through. God made a way through. You can name all of them. Peter struggled to walk on water. Jesus made a way through. Faith is everything. Do not go out of this sermon saying, I want to worry about the world, and my faith is an extra burden to my worries. Faith is not an extra burden to your worries. I want you to reflect on your life and say that the foundation that I was given as a child, die kinderkerk wat ek gekry het toe ek klein was, it's given me a foundation to places where there was no way through. God made a way through. Where there was all hope was gone, He gave me hope. I can list so many things of times in my life where I thought there's no way. I think I've told you this story, but one story was when I was in second year, I lost my matric certificate. So now I've already studied a year for theology, and they said, okay, well, Willem, you can't continue theology unless we have your matric certificate. And I said, well, I have no idea where it is. Like, I have no idea. And I don't know, you've been to Home Affairs, and it's very nice, a very nice experience. So I needed to go a year after matric, 2 years after matric. I needed to go back to Home Affairs to tell them I've lost my matric certificate. They need to give me, somehow I need to find a new matric certificate. It has to happen on it was a Wednesday. It has to happen on that Wednesday. Otherwise, I can't continue my studies. And I was at a point where I jokingly said, well, okay, God, this is now the perfect time for you to take me out of theology. I mean, what are the chances of me? This was like the Wednesday morning. I need to have it by 5 or by 2 the afternoon. I need to have my matric certificate to show that I at least passed matric. Maybe because they doubted my first year marks. I can't tell you today how I got it. I just can tell you I went into the city. I went to Home Affairs, and I just said, listen, Lord, it's the perfect time for you. If you don't want me to be a dominee, we can stop it now. It's easy. I went to Home Affairs, there was no queue. I went to Home Affairs, and I can't tell you all the details, because I can't even remember. I just remember that I got back to theology, and they said, I said, no, I found it. I don't know how I found it. But I remember there was a moment in my life where I thought, this is the perfect time, if faith and the cross and everything, if you want to if it's unnecessary to believe. This is the perfect time, God, to show that it's unnecessary to believe. And it was a time where God showed me that believing makes the world lighter. It makes your life lighter. And I want to leave you with that hope, to say that build your foundation right, and you will live lighter. It won't be that easy, and you'll make a way through. So what do you gain from faith? I think you can decide what you gain from faith. I think it's the wrong question to ask, but I think it's an important question to ask. Because life with faith is better than life without. That's just my opinion. You're welcome to differ, but use it because it's been life-changing in my life and in my family's life. Amen.